Well, thank you so much for joining us, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. So you are increasing your ambition on climate change. Why now?
Well, it's something we've always known from when we first took office 5 years ago and went to the Paris Accords with a renewed momentum on leadership on climate change. We knew we needed to put forward ambitious targets, strive to meet them, and then continually update those targets, but also update the plan. And this year, with the COP conference, with the Americans stepping up after a few years of absence on climate leadership, it's a great time to see the kind of momentum we're all building.
Prime Minister, you've increased your targets, but you're still quite a long way off from the UK or the EU, for example. Can Canada actually do even better than the targets?
Well, I think it's really important to, first of all, understand that everyone's in different circumstances. We have already done, over the past 5 years, a tremendous amount of work on moving forward to reach our existing targets. So it's not just about putting targets, it's about having a plan for them. We had an old target of 30%. We built a plan that got to 31%. Then we moved the plan to 36%. And now we're talking about a target of 40 to 45%. So we know that, for example, phasing out coal and coal generation is one of the things that the Americans are going to be doing. We've already done that. That's already built into our plan. So as we get more and more aggressive, we have to rely on things that we're doing that other people aren't yet doing. Like we have a price on pollution, a carbon tax that's going up to $170 a ton by 2030. That's a big piece of it. And if everyone around the world were to phase out their coal plants and put a price on pollution the way we did, the whole world would be significantly further advanced.
But, Prime Minister, a lot of people, especially climate watchers, are disappointed at some of the efforts that Canada has put in place. Now, we'll talk about your new targets, but even if you focus on those, you targeted 40 to 45% reduction. That's relative to 2005, which really flatters your efforts. If measured against the 1990 benchmark using Kyoto Protocol, then the reduction would be much lower. What do you say to the critics that think Canada is greenwashing?
Oh, everyone needs to continue to do more. But I think the fact that we have one of the realist prices on pollution of all our peer countries, that we are at the same time an exporter of energy, a producer of energy, and that is a challenge that not all other countries have. And we need to make sure that while the world continues to run on oil for the foreseeable future, we're doing a better job than anyone else in decarbonizing, in transforming our energy mix, and investing in things from hydrogen to CCUS to ensuring that there are the innovative good jobs for so many Canadians who work in the energy industry, who know the world is changing, but also who know that they can be part of this extraordinary opportunity. So I think it's something that I've been a little bit frustrated about from time to time, that people are not understanding just how much Canada has done. And I'm not saying we're done. We have a lot more to do. And we have continually not just put forward targets, but put forward a level of detail in our plans that few other countries have matched to this point.
But, Prime Minister, so do you feel like you've been wronged because there has been this frustration, or have your targets been actually too ambitious, given that you've, in the past, not really been able to reach them?
Well, I can't speak for previous governments, but we've seen all around the world that there was always a lot of talk about laying out targets and then knowing that it would be some future government not run by you that would have to explain why you didn't meet them. We turned that around and we said, okay, you know what? We had a target that was set by a previous Conservative government that had no intention of ever meeting those targets. Let's start by building a plan that's actually going to meet that target. And that effort of actually building a concrete plan where we have done tremendous amount to decarbonize, to protect nature, to invest in green solutions, to put a price on pollution that a lot of other countries simply haven't done. We've been able to show that it's not just about setting targets, it's about having those concrete plans to meet them. And quite frankly, if you're only setting targets that you know you're going to be able to know how to meet exactly, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. But if you are not setting, if you're not putting forward a concrete plan to hit those targets, you're not doing enough either. And that's the sweet spot that we've been in for many years now.
Prime Minister, what role does carbon capture actually play in your plan to achieve these goals laid out?
Well, I think carbon capture technology is going to be extremely important as part of how we decarbonize as a world to get to net zero by 50. But let's remember, technology is certainly going to be part of the solution, but technology in and of itself isn't a plan. We know that we have to be investing in all sorts of different technologies, whether it's CCUS, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's new energy efficiencies, whether it's great innovation, and creating a framework where we're supporting businesses, where we've created a price on pollution that encourages businesses to reduce their footprint. That spurs the kind of innovation that we need. So CCUS is a piece of it, but an important piece of it for us, but not the only thing, but not by far.
Prime Minister, the expansion of Canada's oil sands, of course, has long been one of the stumbling blocks to reducing its emissions. So how and where do you see that industry heading by 2030 or 2050?
Well, I think, first of all, the industry itself has recognized that the world is transforming its energy mix. People, investors are looking at greener investments. People are looking for technologies to decarbonize. That's very much something that the oil sector in Canada has been engaged in over the past many years. We've accelerated it significantly to look at how to reduce the carbon emissions associated with energy production. But I will remind you that it's not just about the oil sands themselves. It's also about consumption. It's making sure that Canadians are consuming less fossil fuels. We're going hard towards zero-emission vehicles. We're investing in retrofits. We're making sure that people have better public transit. Those kinds of investments reduce our fuel consumption, but so too must the world, and that's the opportunity. As long as the world is still dependent on oil, there will be a business case for continuing to look for more reliable sources. As we develop those solutions that Canada's on the forefront of developing, we will be able to not just decarbonize, but transform our energy mix. And I can tell you that the brilliant engineers and oil sector workers across Canada are excited about the great jobs that are going to come as we transform the way we do things.
So Canada is a country full of cars, as you say, with an economy dependent on oil and gas sales. How long do you think it will take for consumers to really adopt electric cars?
Well, we've actually seen already a massive spike in the use of electric vehicles. We're installing 5,000 charging stations across the country. We've put in place very strong consumer incentives and rebates to help people afford electric vehicles. And at the same time, we've led the way over the past few years, partially because the U.S. wasn't as focused on this, on investing in auto plants from all the different big companies that are moving towards zero-emission vehicles as part of the North American production, but in Canada. And of course, with the U.S. moving quickly towards climate leadership as well now, there's great opportunities for us to partner even more and keep moving forward.
What do you see as the main challenges, actually, to the adoption of electric vehicles?
Oh, I think the same challenges are always there. Price, accessibility and convenience of charging stations, the technology, a bit of a culture shift as well. But one of the things that we always point out is that because over 80% of our electricity grid is already clean and zero emissions. When you're plugging an electric vehicle in Canada off a hydro, that's a lot cleaner than when you're charging an electric vehicle off a coal plant, like in many parts of the world, including in the United States. So we already have a big step up on electric vehicles and emissions associated with that, which is why we're really doubling down on that, and Canadians get that.
You mentioned Joe Biden. Does the new leadership in the U.S., the arrival at the White House with a lot more push towards climate change, does it put extra pressure on Canada to do more?
No, we were already going to do more. And what happens when we have a partner across the border who's decided to also do more is we can partner. We can partner on clean fuel standards. We can partner on competitive approaches, whether it's border adjustments on carbon or approaches that'll reduce methane together. I mean, we are so integrated as an economy that everything we've done over the past 5 years has been strong and ambitious, but with a willing partner to ensure competitiveness and draw in investment in the United States, Canada's going to be able to be even more ambitious, which was a part of us being able to bump our targets up from 40 to 45%.
I mean, you're working on this cross-border climate plan with Joe Biden. What particular industries or sectors do you think Canada and the U.S. can actually cooperate on together?
All. We have an economy-wide approach at this. Obviously, whether it's manufacturing or energy production or mining and critical minerals, we know that, for example, that there are so many different battery components that are reliant on supply chains for places like China. Canada has an extraordinary supply of those critical minerals as well, and developing a capacity to provide not just better processes for extraction and doing it responsibly for the environment, but also from a security basis, a reliable, friendly partner that will be able to build stability into our modern supply chains moving forward is something that Canada and the U.S. have been working closely on agriculture, on transportation, on sharing so much in terms of standards. Our economies are so integrated that it is great news that the U.S. is choosing to step up and lead on climate because for the past 4 years, we've been going it alone, and it's been a tough slog. Now we're going to be able to accelerate all the more.
Talk to me about hydrogen. So what role do you see hydrogen playing actually in Canada's energy transition?
Oh, I think hydrogen, first of all, Canada has long been a leader in hydrogen power cells with Ballard and others. It's Canadian technology that has led the way over the past 2.5 decades. We now see a serious level of interest, of innovation, of investment from around the world. We've signed partnerships with Germany. We're moving forward on developing clean hydrogen, blue hydrogen and green hydrogen. There are tremendous opportunities there. And Canada is very well positioned to be at the forefront of that, both for domestic usage and for export.
And so if you look at the industries and, of course, some of the sectors, maybe in tech or elsewhere, what do you see dominating actually in the Canadian economy in the next few decades as you go through this transition?
Well, there's two things. First of all, Canada will always be Canada. We have, great mineral resources, great natural resources, great energy resources. But our greatest advantage has always been Canadians themselves. Educated, ambitious, forward-thinking, strong social cohesion and social safety nets, diversity because we welcome immigrants from all around the world and have that exciting sort of energy of ideas, of creativity that happens when you have such diversity, and connections to every part of the world. Canadians themselves, hardworking, ambitious, forward-thinking, are our greatest opportunity as we see the economy transform itself, as innovative workers right across the country will be part of developing those solutions we need.
But is there a specific, part of technology with carbon capture, or is there something specifically with hydrogen or something like that that you think will really take off in Canada?
Well, we are definitely investing in carbon capture and in hydrogen. We've long been one of the global leaders on AI, which touches so much, whether it's further investments in genomics, where Canada has significant advantages. We've moved forward on agricultural superclusters that are really pioneering forward-thinking approaches on ag to support our farmers. There are so many different areas where Canada can and will excel that I'm not going to narrow it down.
Prime Minister, buildings, of course, are one of the highest sources of energy consumption and of emissions. In some cases, you have electric grids in Canada that can't support solar panels. And in some cases, of course, solar panels are very expensive. How can you address that?
I think, first of all, improvements to our grid are ongoing. We have, like I said, over 80% green energy, green electricity as it is. There's more to do, and we will continue to do that. We're also looking at helping the U.S. Get its grid cleaner by exporting more Canadian electricity to the U.S. That's constantly ongoing. I think the challenges of modernizing and upgrading our grids are there for everyone. Getting smarter grids grids, being able to do more microgeneration, understanding how the new building standards and retrofits for our existing building stock are going to be essential. We just put forward a budget that has very ambitious investments in transforming our building stock so that we can get to net zero by 50 and reach our 2030 targets, of course.
Are you optimistic? Are you more optimistic, actually, about the transition in general, globally, since last year? So what happened in the last 12 months to almost focus the minds of more leaders around the world?
Well, I think one of the things we've seen around the world is something that I've been saying for the 5 years since I first got elected, that it's not about making a choice between what's good for the economy and what's good for the environment anymore. You need to do them both together. The only way to have a plan for the future of the economy is to have a plan to fight climate change and protect the environment. And what we've seen, I think, over the past decade and past year and a half is really an understanding, whether it's from capital markets, whether it's from various countries, to see that, wow, there's a real opportunity there. Even as China continues to be challenged with pollution, they're at the same time innovating in extraordinary ways on solar and on batteries. We need to compete with that for our economic well-being, not just because we want to protect the planet. And that's where Canadians are very excited about the opportunities on it. And the other thing why I'm optimistic is about a year and a half ago, we fought an election where there was still a gap in our plan on how to reach our 2030 targets. Well, in the year since then, we have invested and leaned in and seen some of the results of the early initiatives we put in 2015 and 2016 come forward, which demonstrates that not only can we increase our targets, but we're actually demonstrating concrete plans that are increasing massively our ability to reach those targets. So it's that combination of momentum, of everyone coming around to it, of Canadians now understanding that there is no more debate on whether you put a price on pollution. Even the Conservative Party in Canada, which has long resisted any price on pollution, just put forward its own carbon tax. It's convoluted and not very ambitious, but I think the debate has been settled that we know we need to show climate leadership and innovation, and that's exactly what all Canadians want. And I think that will allow us, particularly with other countries in the world stepping up on leadership, it will allow us all to move forward positively.
But Prime Minister, why was there that change? So is it the younger generation? Is it the millennials kind of putting pressure on everyone else, or is it a change of leadership in the U.S. together with the U.S., China, and India spearheading the movement?
I think it's a bit of all of that. I think the business community has understood that it just makes smart business sense to go where, as we Canadians say, as the puck is going, and not where it is now. And the world is going towards lower carbon emissions. The world is looking for technology and innovation. The world is looking for solutions that Canadians are very good at figuring out, because we're too hot in the summer, we're too cold in the winter, we have big spaces between our communities. We're ambitious, we're forward thinking. There are a lot of practical and tangible reasons why Canadians are very interested in finding solutions to the challenges we're faced with. And whether it's millennials, whether it's the business community, whether it's the international leadership we're seeing, Canada is right in there in moving forward on fighting climate change.
How difficult is it to change consumer behavior? So I guess to live in a better, greener, utopian world, it would be less travel, less, of course, fossil fuel, but also traveling less with eating less meat and things like that. How long will that take?
I think it's actually remarkable to see how many citizens around the world, but certainly how many Canadians are happy about being a little more thoughtful about their choices. Now, not the same choices are not going to be the right thing for everyone. People will make the right choices, but knowing that there is a much greater availability of options that are lower carbon, that you can change in your lifestyle, that doesn't reduce your quality of life, quite frankly, often enhances your quality of life. And I think the challenge we have as governments is creating a framework within which those solutions can come forward without being too much of an immediate hit on ordinary citizens' pocketbook. And that's where, when we brought in our strong price on pollution, we're actually returning more money to the average family than they pay out on average on the carbon tax. So if they reduce their consumptions, they actually get more money in that rebate. And that encouragement and that demonstration that we are, even as we do good things for the planet and protect from climate change, we are supporting families in their daily expenses and creating jobs for their kids and their industry into the future. Those are the three elements that everyone wants to see. Yes, they want a protected planet, but yes, they need to know that they're not going to be carrying too many extra burdens because of it, but also that there are going to be good jobs for them and their kids in the future. That's where we've really put the emphasis, and I think that is a big piece of what has been the awakening over the past few years.
So how many jobs, Prime Minister, are you expecting to create through some of these new clean technology, these new sectors in general?
Well, right now our focus is on getting out of this COVID recession. So we've talked about 1 million new jobs that we're creating by the end of the year. But obviously, as we move forward, whether it's the energy sector or the natural resources sector writ large, or in our cities and our high-tech companies, there are tremendous economic opportunities that Canada is well positioned to create jobs through.
Prime Minister, have you changed or made any changes to your lifestyle to, I don't know, drive less or eat less meat or anything like that?
Well, I'm flying an awful lot less, but that's more COVID than anything else. I think we're all adjusting to a new reality and thinking about how this moment of pause, where we're doing so much more virtually, where we're doing so many things differently, is having us, get perhaps fresh insights into how the coming years we can make different and perhaps better choices. So we're always looking for ways. I try to ride my bike a lot and get outside more often and eat healthy and all those things that we're all supposed to be doing. But at the same time, thinking about as a society, what can we be doing more? I think those are a lot of great conversations that are happening as we come through this COVID crisis.
Prime Minister, what would your priorities be for COP26? So we're 6-7 months away from that. What, we can't get everything done, or maybe we can, but a lot of that would be maybe naive. So what would be your 2-3 priorities?
I think the first one is to really make sure that everyone is doing their part, that everyone is putting forward the right targets and the right plan for themselves. I mean, there are things that work, but that are difficult. I mean, for a lot of countries, phasing out coal plants is going to be incredibly difficult. And countries like Canada can be an example that it can be done, even though, yes, it is even difficult for us. As we move forward on shifting our pricing mechanisms, building in the cost of externalities with something like a price on pollution. Canada's moved forward with that. A lot of other countries haven't yet, but look at it as the most efficient way to do it. I think if we can sufficiently bring the conversation around over the coming months, so that once we get to COP26, countries around the world will realize, well, maybe we can do like Canada and actually win an election around a carbon tax, which we were able to do, is moving the narrative and the story we're telling about the future to our kids along in a positive way. So yes, there's the targets, there's the plan to meet the targets, but there's also that sense of capacity to do it, and ambition and even excitement about the opportunities that we're seeing. And I think that is the message that I'm really looking forward to seeing resonate around the world as we approach COP.
But Prime Minister, I think your carbon emissions amongst the G7 countries were the only ones that went up since the Paris Agreement. So what's your pledge today?
We took power in 2015 from a government that for 10 years had not taken very seriously the responsibilities around climate change. And what we see is that the climate emissions would have continued to increase massively over the past number of years had we not brought in real measures to arrest that climb, and we are now poised to start significantly decreasing our measures. We are going to hit and surpass our targets, and we're going to continue looking into bringing even more ambition to the table. But Canadians are sort of old-fashioned in that we don't just want to talk about a great target. We need to have a concrete plan that's going to bring us to that target. And that's where Canada is a little bit ahead of many of our peer countries.